yesterday last week. Last week we talked about one of the ideas that we talk about are the circle of safety and cortisol, so stress. And I feel like I didn't talk enough on it during that, so would like to add a little bit more to it. And the circle of safety, it's basically mean there's values to group living, and there's like I thought of this one way to like kind of paint a really good light on it. So do you know the term apex predator? It's basically like within a ecosystem, within like an environment, the apex predator are the ones that have no one else that like hunting it. Yeah, they have no like competition, or they don't have any threat.
Like an orca, take the
Yeah.
and nobody is hunting it.
And like going back to the like caveman era, do you think that we were the apex predator?
The caveman era? No.
Yeah.
I was gonna say dinosaurs, but I was like, wait.
And it's right. And the reason is that alone we are nothing, right? But from like being social animal, being together, having plans and strategize things together, that help us become apex predator. And to be able to have trust and cooperate, to be able to like try new ideas without fearing like for your own safety, that's the value of group living. But if you look at the society that we are living in today, there's too much stress and too much cortisol, and that like preventing us from all of those parts that made us the apex predator. Like you're afraid of failure, you are afraid to share your idea, you are afraid to ask for help, and that's like preventing you from doing better things. And I would like to talk a little bit about the origin or the biology of cortisol. I'm thinking of that today. So cortisol, it gets in your body like we share that chemical among other like social mammals. So if you like watch a documentary, you see a gazelles, like one of them like is something like, and like all of the animals all the animals other gazelle in the group also react the same way too. So it's contagious, and the point of it is to like keep us alive. And like when you get cortisol in your body, you get a few things happen. One of the things is that it put glucose into your muscles, so like you like toughen up, and it's like shut off non-essential function at the current time, like at the time of fight and flight. One of them is growth. You don't need your hair to grow. You don't need your like fingernails to grow at that emergency time. It shut off your immune system. So like your body needs to get the energy from somewhere. So like it's shut off like non-essential thing. And another thing it's shut off is it's inhibit the release of oxytocin. And we talk about it. Oxytocin is the chemical of love and relationship. So having too much cortisol in our body is preventing us from building relationship. And like that's fine and good, right? The goal of cortisol is to get into your body quickly and get out really quickly, because you don't get stressed out a lot of time. You don't want to stay stressed. But then in the society that we are living in today, in the like working environment that created by our leaders that are focused in like dopamine based working environment, it's created a lot of cortisol, and it's dripping like day in and day out. So that's why like all of the cancer are on the rise, all of the chronic disease are on the rise, and it's because of that continuous dripping of cortisol in our body.
How do you lower cortisol?
So so that's the job of a leader. Your job is to create a environment that's basically an environment of trust and cooperation, and have everyone like trust each other, and like the reason that I brought up serotonin and oxytocin and how you would get it, because if you want to create a like functional team or a high performance team, those are the things that you should focus on creating, like public recognition, like from the serotonin, or the building trust between people through serotonin and oxytocin. And that's from last week. This week, I would like to talk about the Moneyball metric of leadership. Does anyone know what Moneyball means? It's a term from baseball. So it's basically mean within any sport or within any industry, there's a metric that that seems not important at first, but then like if you are able to increase that metric, you will more likely to win more. So like adding that to leadership, what would you think is the characteristic of a successful leader is?
Creating that environment of trust. I don't know if that's like a word, but trust.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. Andrew, Colton, can I add something? No. So I would say, and this is what I got from Next Job, and they said the Moneyball metric of leadership or of business is humility, but I would like to like even go deeper into that and like back up and to talk about how would we get humility. And I would say that the most important thing about being a leader is courage. Courage is the ability to stand up and do the right thing despite the overwhelming fear. And courage also means the ability to like go into the unknown and like ready to face it. And I would like, when you are facing something that you are afraid of, there's 3 ways that you would react to it. And I would like to talk about those. So the first one would be fearless. So fearless or bravery, you think that it would be good for a leader to be fearless, but then when you are fearless, you don't care about the consequences, so you wouldn't make choice based on like the consequent result of the decision, and that's why you don't want to have a fearless leader in the organization. The second thing is to just give in to the fear, and so when you give in to the fear, there's this phrase that was coined by Next Jump. It's LHF. It stands for lights, high, and fake. So it's basically you would do anything to avoid that fear. Either you like for example you like someone tell you to do something, you are like responsible to do something, but you don't know how to do it. And when anyone asks you, you would say that you got it and you don't need any help. And hide is basically hiding from people, and fake it. So you just would do anything to not deal with the fear, to not deal with the problem. And the third thing is courage. So courage, it's require fears. It's require being afraid because you take the consequence into consideration of your decision making, and it's really important because to do great things in life, to do like anything important, you need courage. Because if someone are able to tell you what to do, you don't need courage because it's not unknown. It's known. You get you get you get expected results. But when it's come to things that you are like unsure of, you need courage to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And from courage, you are like tying back to being a good leaders. You need courage to do these few important things. One of them would be empathy. I would like define empathy as being able to put your own emotion and point of view aside, put yourself into someone else's position, and feel their point of view with no judgment. Like the non-judgment part is important because if there's people would mix up between empathy and sympathy. Empathy would be like they would say something to you and you would be like, I feel you. But sympathy would be like, yeah, don't want to deal with that. That's sympathy, like you know what they are going through, but you refuse to like be engaged with that emotion. I think it's being honest, basically authenticity. It's basically saying and believing what you are doing. Saying and doing what you actually believe, and stay honest, even though the people are not going to like the answer, and that's authenticity is important. And in the past few weeks, 2 or 3, right? I've been really interested in this idea of empathy and how and the importance of it in leadership. So I wrote a article blog on it. So is it okay if I read it out to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So leadership, empathy. Like any form of relationship in life, leadership also requires empathy. We need it now and we need it more than ever. What is empathy and what does it have to do with leadership? Here is my personal take on it. I'll start off by telling you why mortality led me to empathy in life. Growing up, a lot of people whom I love and hold very dearly to me passed away. It all happened so abruptly that it felt like nothing ever happened and they weren't even there to begin with. As a kid, I wasn't able to understand it, but as I grow older, I start thinking about the concept of mortality a lot. As brilliant and advanced as our minds have evolved, we are still not able to grasp the concept of death. Life is fragile. It cannot be gone in an instant. The biggest emotion everybody goes through when someone passes away is regret. We regret not spending enough time with them. We regret not loving them enough. We regret not being nicer to them the last time we talked to them. These regrets all stem from the lack of empathy for when they were still around. Only in death that we find empathy, that we stop for a moment and try to feel what they might have felt. Only then we start asking ourselves what was their last memory of us and how did that make them feel, because that's going to be carried on by them and ourselves forever now. The concept of mortality profoundly changed the way I talk and interact with people. I keep asking myself the questions like how what I'm about to say going to make them feel, and if that was going to be the last thing I say to them, what would they think of me? I constantly put myself in the position of the person I'm speaking to and asking myself how they are feeling. Through mortality, I accidentally practiced empathy. Empathy is the ability to put your own emotion and perspective aside, put yourself in the person's position, feel what they are feeling, and see their point of view without judgment. Empathy requires courage. Courage means daringly step into the unknown. Courage means to proceed to do the right thing despite the overwhelming fear. Without fear, there is no courage. If the thing we face doesn't scare us, it's probably not that important at all. Without fear, there is no empathy. Empathy requires us to have the courage to open up ourselves, to place ourselves in someone else's position, to expose ourselves to what they are going through, to feel what they feel, and to understand where they are coming from. Empathy demands emotional labor. When we practice empathy, we willingly expose ourselves to emotional trauma, just like the person we are talking to. That is why people are so afraid of showing empathy, because they are scared that the moment that they open up themselves, they will be hit by this wave of emotion. I got the last 1 minute. Oh, they will be hit by this wave of emotion and get hurt by it. Like physical labors, when we have to deal with something hard and heavy, it drains our energies. Likewise, we are afraid of being empathetic because it will drain us and our mind might take us to dangerous places. That is why we are afraid of empathy. That is why empathy requires courage. It is scary, it is hard, but we have to do it more. Without empathy, we are just a bunch of cold-hearted jerks that only think about ourselves and disregard how everyone around us feel. That might be an exaggeration, but it isn't too far from the truth. Like any form of relationship in life, leadership also requires empathy. We, as social animals, establish emotion so we can feel safe, so that when we turn our back, when danger comes, when we ask for help, people will have our back. They will rush in to protect us, to help us, to give us physical and emotional support. Relationships doesn't develop overnight. They take time to build up, but they have to start somewhere, and they start with trust. Trust is a feeling, not an instruction. The best way to build trust is to open up ourselves, be vulnerable, share our emotion with one another. That's empathy. The best way to keep any relationship going is to be honest with each other, seek to be understood, and to understand the other person's point of view. That's empathy. The greatness of our civilization comes down to the connection between ourselves. It does come down to the connection of one person to the next. Leadership is no different from any other relationship. It's the relationship of the leader and the follower. It is the connection, the trust, and the search for understanding between the two. It is that connection, that trust, that empathetic feeling that make a follower say, I believe in you and I'll follow you everywhere. And make the leader say, thank you for believing in me, and I couldn't have done it without you. It all comes down to the connection between two human beings. But why is that? That we talk about how to act confident like a leader, how to be charismatic like a leader, how to speak like a leader, how to write like a leader, believe it or not. To all those, I call it BS. All that they want to do is to make themselves look better, to be more like a leader of their definition. But there's no connection being made. There is no trust being established. There is no seeking of understanding. There is no empathization of emotion. Just cut the BS and get to building a genuine human connection with another person. All we wanted to do is to be understood, to feel like we belong, and be around people who believe in what we believe. The most respect, the highest compliment, the highest amount of appreciation we can give to someone is to empathize with them. We have just the word for that from the beautiful language of Zulu from Africa. The phrase is sawubona. Sawubona is a greeting in Zulu, means I see you. I see you as in not seeing the person with our eyes, but seeing them with our minds as well. Sawubona means we see you for not what you look like, but we see you for who you are. Sawubona is the understanding and acceptance of the complexity of a person. It is another way of saying, I feel you, I empathize with you, and I accept you. When all we are looking for is to be understood, to be accepted in a group, Sawubona is the highest compliment we can give to someone. That is why they show their gratitude for being accepted by saying, Yabo Sabona means I see you see me. In other words, thank you for accepting me and empathize with me, and understanding me and see me for who I am. It is the trust and collaboration that make us great, and we all need more Sawubona moments in our life. We live in a world where we are more divisive than ever. We live in a world where we resort to shouting louder and louder rather than seeking to be understood and to understand. We live in a world where we jump to conclusion without repercussion. We live in the world where we pretend to be good rather than to be good. We live in a world where pain is passed on rather than healed. We live in a selfish world where we elect selfish politicians for our selfish need. We live in a world where leaders think their job is to dominate rather than serving others. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can change that. We don't need to wait for someone else to do the right thing. We just need to do it ourselves. If we could just be a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more mindful about what we are saying, a little bit more of Sawubona, to see and to understand a person for who they are, then a better place await us all. So I would like to conclude this meeting by practicing Sawubona and saying back Yabo Sabona. So I would say Sawubona, you would say Yabo Sabona. Okay, ready? Sawubona.
Yeah, Sabona.
Yabo?
Yeah, it's Yabo Sabona.
Yabo Sabona.
Okay, let's try again. Sawubona?
Yabo Sabona.
Cool. Thank you.
Yabo